What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard Grant Cohn collaboration. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He's Grant Cohn. What's up, Grant?
Having a good morning. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great. We got a lot to get to on today's show. We're going to talk about the new quarterback the 49ers have added. We're going to look at their draft class and wonder if they've added enough talent this offseason. Plus, there's another example in the NFL I think the Niners should look at to model how they should treat their young quarterback. So I want to get to all of that. But before we do, I just want to give a shout out to all the new members on the channel. Thank you, everybody. We just started the memberships this week. So if you are so inclined, we would appreciate that. For $2.99 a month, you'll get priority comment response. You'll get custom emojis, membership badges, all that good stuff. Trying to get to the Grant Cohn YouTube empire level.
Easy. Just give it 2 years. I give it 2 years. Rob's going to be 50,000 subscribers. That's my hot take of the day.
Wow. Well, that's a hot take of yours I could agree with finally after a long time. But
after a decade.
All right. Let's get into it. The hot news of the day for the 49ers. They are adding another quarterback. That would be Brandon Allen, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals. Tom Pelissero and Mike Garafolo had the report. Always thought that was a little weird. The tweet from Pelissero was, Brandon Allen is signing with the 49ers. Sources tell me and Mike Garafolo. Why do they got to tell both of you? Just tell one. Like, do we really need both? That's just weird.
Group chat? Was it a group chat? It must have been a group chat.
Exactly. Just insiders. And then you just text everybody. Yeah. And the first thought that went through my head, Grant, is this is the kind of arm that you add when you're just adding a guy, right? A spare, essentially. This is not what Sam Darnold was. This is the kind of guy who has, 15 career games of experience, 9 career starts, and he's 30 years old. He's a camp arm.
Yeah, he's Josh Johnson. I think he's like the least controversial quarterback you could bring in, because if they drafted a quarterback in round 5 or even 6 or 7, there'd be so much speculation, not just from like Niner fans, but national reporters like, what does this mean about Trey Lance or Brock Purdy's recovery? Like, there's so many different ways you could take it. So it's like, okay, we won't do that. Even signing an undrafted free agent is like, oh my God, like, is this the next Brock Purdy? So they didn't do that. They brought in a guy with no upside in his 30s. And it's pretty clear, like, hey, man, like, there's no future here for him. There's no future. He's not taking anyone's spot. He's just here for camp. So I think that's a good thing. He kind of knows the system, right? He comes from Cincinnati.
Kyle Shanahan said they'd love to get a fourth arm after the draft. Also in the Pelissero tweet, it said, Allen helped mentor Joe Burrow in Cincinnati the past 3 years.
It was all Allen.
Maybe he did. I have no idea. That's fine. But I also like it, too, because, like, in Kyle's initial comments after the draft, he was like, yeah, we'd love to get a fourth guy, but hopefully we're getting Brock back soon. And it's like, do you want Brock Purdy throwing that much in training camp? Like, he's still going to be working his way back to that point. So good. Get Brandon Allen in there. Let him throw all the damn passes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actually, the way it works in these offseason practices is the third string quarterback doesn't really do much. Like, he's there to work with the running backs. The way it works is there's positional drills, and the tight ends and the wide receivers need to run routes and catch passes. So they will catch passes from the good quarterbacks or the guys high up on the depth chart, the guys who, you need to throw more like down the field. So Lance, Darnold, they'll be working with the tight ends and wide receivers. And then on the other field, the running backs need work too. So the guy who does all the handoffs, that's the third string quarterback. And it's like, honestly, a ball boy could do that. But I guess it'd be better to have an NFL quarterback, because sometimes you got to throw a check down pass or a swing pass too. So that's Brandon Allen's job here.
Well, I mean, Brock was throwing those in the NFC Championship game with no UCL in his elbow.
You wonder why he was so good at throwing those check down passes, because he was doing it all offseason.
But you're right. This is like the only quarterback the Niners could have signed where I wouldn't have been like, oh my God, are they preparing for a Trey Lance trade? Like, this is nothing. And I'm Mr. Conspiracy Guy, according to everybody. And even I'm saying this is nothing.
Yeah, Brandon Allen. There was a real bidding war for Brandon Allen. It seemed like they were trying to have like the most nondescript quarterback possible. I wonder if they give him Josh Johnson's number 17. It feels like it'd be fitting.
I don't need to take a deep dive into this, but let me just say that Ronnie Bell choosing number 28 as a wide receiver, oh my God, is that a questionable start to a career?
You know what that tells me? Practice squad.
I mean, 20.
Hey, buddy, we don't really have a wide receiver number for you. So if you make the team, we'll find one for you. Like, that's not going to, if he ever makes his team, that won't be his number. But he was like one of the last picks in the draft, practice squad.
Yeah. I mean, he was number 8 at Michigan. There's no, obviously, he's not getting that with the 49ers. But, like,
I
dude,
feel like those
even
final 3 picks in round 7 were kind of just like priority free agents. Like, we get our first pick of the free agents.
well, John Lynch even said at 216, they were debating between D. Winters and Jalen Graham. And then when Jalen Graham was there at the end, they were like, forget it. We'll just take both of them.
Wow. They're so good at drafting linebackers. I think they're probably the best team in the league at drafting linebackers. So anytime they take one, I think that guy's going to be a contributor. Ronnie Bell and Braden Willis, they could work out, but they could probably also get cut and put on the practice squad. I don't think anyone's poaching Ronnie Bell from the 49ers. So you got options there. No disrespect to Ronnie Bell. It's just you were the 253rd pick in the draft.
Right. How about Braden Willis? Oh, all these teams messed up on me. Like, okay, dude.
Don't talk like that.
I hope so, but yeah, like let's,
Remember Leon O'Neal from last year? He was saying stuff like, he was like, I'm going to make the team, and he was an undrafted free agent safety, and he was one of the first guys they cut. Like, dude, this is a very serious veteran team. You can't just say you're going to take a vet's job. Like, you're going to take Ross Dwelly's job. You don't even know Ross Dwelly. A lot of people have tried to take Ross Dwelly's job and failed. So you better come correct all offseason because he will.
Right. Well, we have a tendency to be like, oh yeah, Ross Dwelly, he stinks, whatever. But like he is
the survivor.
Right. Like the hierarchy of NFL rosters, like he's there for a reason. He's not just somebody. Yeah, exactly. He's a pro.
Yeah.
And
he knows
these guys are still learning.
Exactly.
Taking a look at the broader picture of the draft class and also the free agency class with the 49ers. You and I were texting earlier today, and I just said, like, the draft class to me looks like it's more about insulation or preparing for the future than it is about this year. Does it seem like that to you?
I mean, I'll try to look at it from the Niners' perspective. What they're saying is, look, our team is really stacked. And it is. Like, our team is super stacked. We have these late picks. We can't really expect any of these guys to contribute right away, except for Jake Moody. So don't expect them to contribute right away. Draft for next year. And that's what they did last year too. So really the guys you should be looking at are Drake Jackson, Danny Gray, Sam Womack, or who, that whole Nick Zakelj, Spencer Burford. Those guys need to take big leaps. So, and that's a fair thing. I mean, there's a very real chance the Niners hit the ground running this year with Christian McCaffrey on the team week 1 and Elijah Mitchell healthy and just run the table. Like, this is a team that could go 15-2. 16-1. They really could do it with a bunch of different quarterbacks. And so I give them that respect. Like, you guys have a formula that works in the regular season. Your defense works. Your running game works. But are you going to get over the hump in the very end in the playoffs? Like, have you changed your formula at all? Like, do you have any? The right side of your offensive line still a problem. Don't know who your quarterback is. So it still feels like the same team, but it's a damn good team. And I understand how they're building it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I feel like regardless of who the quarterback is, the entire goal for the 49ers this year is just to get that person ramped up to where at the end of the year, they're playing their best football. It doesn't matter if they struggle during the year, whether it's Trey, whether it's Brock coming back from injury, or even Gulp, Sam Darnold. Right. Just get that guy playing at a certain level by the end of the year. Because the NFC, I don't care about the Lions. Like, the NFC is still weak, in my opinion. And so if you win 9 games, you're going to the playoffs. So I don't care about the actual regular season record of the 49ers. Just get to the playoffs and get your quarterback, whoever it is, ramped up to the level they need to be at to make a run.
Right, because in the regular season, you can win in spite of your quarterback. If you have the best defense in the league and a great run game, you could definitely win 14, 15, 16 games. But you can't really win a Super Bowl in spite of your quarterback in 2023, the way you could 20, 25 years ago. And that's what the whole conversation with the 49ers. So we'll see if one of these 3 quarterbacks asserts himself by January as someone special. If not, they're going to be that team that's like the 1 or 2 seed that loses in the playoffs. That's who they'll be.
Yeah. Again. Like, no. I don't like that.
But like the ride will be fun. It'll be like, this year's different and they're really great. And then it'll happen again and be like, oh, they got us.
I'm seeing a lot of talk in the chat about the NBA playoffs last night, which, by the way, did you see who was at the Warriors-Lakers game?
Of course I saw. It was Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and their dear, dear friend, Sam Darnold.
Dude, Sam Darnold, man, he
Telling you.
is. I get why he's tight with McCaffrey because obviously they played together, but damn, is Sam doing the right thing, man? Ingratiate yourself to those Niner veterans.
Kittle is the key because Kittle is essentially the face of the team. If you have Kittle on your side, I mean, especially on offense, you got it. Like, that's a good one to have. Darnold's very smart here. And Trey, I mean, like, he must be looking at that like, hey, why didn't I get a text? I would have gone. Right. We both could have gone, but no.
That's the question. Is Trey Lance on the text chain?
Doesn't look like it. Doesn't seem like it. I don't know. Maybe it's his fault. Maybe he doesn't text back, but it's such a obviously awkward look.
He's not going to make that same mistake that Jimmy made with the not texting back, would he? I feel like if you're Trey, you got to have your phone on you all the time, man. Come on.
I would think so. Like, the funny thing about Trey is if you look at his Instagram, I'm not on Instagram, but when I do check out his Instagram, there's a million pictures of him looking at his phone. What is that like a Gen Z thing or whatever? It's like, hey, take a picture of me looking at my phone. Ooh, that you got me. You got me. That was
taking
candid.
Those pictures? That's what
Who the hell is taking those pictures? That's a weird pose.
Do you have somebody on the payroll following you around?
Yeah, I don't understand.
It's
really, supposed to look so casual, right? Like, oh, I'm just not doing anything. Like, yeah, you posed. That's a pose. What are you doing?
Manny watching on YouTube says Brock is average. They won't develop Trey. Same outcome. Again, I don't want to say that Brock is average either. All I'm saying with all these guys is that we don't know yet. And I know that's frustrating for people, but that is the actual correct answer. We don't know, but nobody wants to admit it. Everybody has chosen their side.
With Brock, like, I think during the run, some people were like, hey, kind of poor man's Joe Montana, scrambles around a little bit, doesn't have the strongest arm. Like, comparing Brock's arm to Joe Montana had a howitzer compared to Brock Purdy. Go back and watch young Joe. He could actually push the ball down the field. Brock isn't really that guy. When he throws the ball down the field, the wide receivers are stopping and waiting. To me, like, he can do a whole lot on a really good team, and he's like the perfect backup for this team. But to just say that that's the franchise quarterback, I think that's the Jimmy Garoppolo mistake. They're different quarterbacks, but they're both not franchise quarterbacks, in my opinion.
The one thing that's different about Brock than Jimmy, though, did you catch Brock with the Kelseys? They asked him, who would like clutch situation, who are you throwing the ball to? And he said Debo. Yeah. And they were like, oh, wow, Debo over Kittle?
Oh, the guy who always drops the ball? Yeah, he's a great choice.
And Brock said, when I throw it to Debo, the ball just sticks with him. George likes to let it get to his chest, is basically what he said. I love that answer from Brock Purdy. That's so
he said that.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's not an exact quote, but I'm paraphrasing, but he definitely
Brock Purdy's he's such a G. I love that.
Yes,
dude. He's so cool. That's why I like Brock, dude. Because I feel like he just takes constant little public jabs at George Kittle, like me. And I think that's money. Because George, I feel like he could take it,
Well, one, I don't think George is really going to, George will probably just see that and laugh at that.
He'll
but
laugh
the point is, Brock's thought about it. Like, he's thought about it. He's recognized it. And he said it on the pod, which is great. Like, you need he is not afraid of being the leader and the quarterback and, the sheriff of the offense. And I love that.
It's a very smart, savvy thing to say because it's sort of like challenging your tight end to be better. When really, I don't know that Brock really feels that way. I've watched Brock play. Like, he goes to Kittle in the red zone. He doesn't go to Debo. So it's something to say. Maybe that's how you get Debo on your side and how you get the most out of Kittle. It seems actually a very savvy thing to say. He does seem like he has this real natural leadership ability, both not just like lead by example, but vocal. It's very interesting. Yes. Which might mean he's more than a backup, right? He carries himself like a starter.
He absolutely
really does.
And there's part of that you need. You need to make the right decisions for the team, regardless of how the team themselves are going to feel about it at times. And the story I always go back to.
Kyle won't do that.
Right. The story
Kyle won't do that.
Sorry, is Chris Carter complaining to Warren Moon with the Minnesota Vikings. Like, hey, man, I was open. You got to throw me the ball. And if anybody's familiar with Chris Carter, he's not saying that in a gentle way. He's coming at you pretty hard. And Warren Moon turns to his head and grabbed him. And he said, if you ever talk to me like that again, I will bury you in this offense. And Chris Carter said, I never complained to him after that ever again. You need a little of that. You're the quarterback. It's all on you. You have more responsibility than anybody else. And yeah, you should think about in crunch time, if I got to go to a person, who's it going to be? And Brock, he said it, he thought about it, and I loved it.
Here's another way to look at it. The quarterback is the grown-up in the huddle.
Yes.
Right? And everyone else are like kids, and they're going to push the envelope and see what they can get away with and talk. And it's up to you to set limits and boundaries. And that's what's so weird about this team is the kids in the huddle are 30 years old, and the grown-up in the huddle is 22. And I think Trey Lance was a little overwhelmed by that. I don't think he was in there like setting limits and raising his voice. I think people said like, hey, dude, we can't hear you. Because Jimmy had that big, he has that really deep projected voice. You can hear him. I think I don't know that Brock has that voice, but clearly he asserts himself.
Yes.
In a way you have to, which is like probably rare for a freaking 22-year-old on a team like this.
Yeah, last pick in the draft.
Rare.
He's never acted like it. I'll give him that. Gammon Brown says, true or false, the Christian McCaffrey restructure is for Sam Darnold's starting salary.
I wonder. I guess that's an interesting theory, man, because it ain't for Brandon Allen. We all thought it's for Yannick Ngakoue, but honestly, I think they're gonna let Drake Jackson like play. If they sign Yannick Ngakoue or another edge rusher, that's basically saying, yo, Drake, no playing time for you. I know we took you in round 2 and didn't give you a chance, but we're giving you the Trey Lance treatment. You're done. We hate you. I don't think he's trending that direction. I don't think they're giving up on Drake Jackson. I think they might look at him as more of an Aaron Banks type. So that is terrifying, Gammon. Probably.
But if they saw Drake kind of fizzle out at the end of last year, which Kyle literally said he lost his power, maybe they want a Yannick Ngakoue or a Justin Houston so that they can spell Drake. It's like, hey, let's have more people to throw at you, and we don't have to worry about Drake's conditioning at the end of the year.
Or maybe that's what Robert Beal, Cleveland Farrell, and Austin Bryant are here for, and Kerry Hyder. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you start counting the bodies. Like, I think if I had to guess, they don't sign Yannick Ngakoue or Leonard Floyd or any edge rusher, and Gammon's right. And what they're doing is opening this cap space just in case. Because, it's a legitimate possibility that Sam Darnold could be the starting quarterback this year. And if I said like 10 minutes ago, this team could go 15-2 with any of these quarterbacks in the regular season because the whole thing is about running and defense. Well, what if Sam Darnold just happens to be the guy who's in the back seat going 15-2? Well, you might have to pay him. So, yeah, it's true.
And the 49ers literally said that. They loved how he played in that 6-game stretch when the Panthers were running the ball 31 times a game for like 200 yards a game. So
he didn't play great, but he was 4-2 on a team that ran the ball. So what are they going to do here?
No. Sean says, I don't think it matters who we see with Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. I rarely saw Ayuk Debo with Kittle. Certain players seem to vibe with each other. George Kittle's kind of corny. So was Jimmy. George Kittle is kind of corny.
Yeah, I would have to say so too.
So
is Pat McAfee. And people like him.
So. Yes, they're characters for sure. Bay Marin says 49ers quarterback picture, Trey, Brock, and then a ghost for Sam Darnold. Well done.
What's Brandon Allen?
I don't even know. Eric Branch actually had a hilarious tweet. I want to give him credit for that. Which let's see if I can bring it up. Okay. There are 59 quarterbacks that have thrown at least 250 passes since 2019. Brandon Allen is 52nd out of 59 quarterbacks in completion percentage. The guy that's one spot ahead of him at 51 on the list is Sam Darnold.
Sam Deasy. Sam Deasy. You know who Sam Darnold looks like to me? O'Doyle Rules all grown up.
Kind of.
Billy Madison. Like, I could just see him throwing a touchdown and being like, Darnold rules.
I kind of want him to do that, to be honest with you. That would be a class move.
Just Carlos be a villain, man.
Yeah, embrace it.
Be a villain.
Kyle's ego and his inability to know how to develop a quarterback will never let him win a ring. Purdy fell into his lap. Lucky pick. It absolutely was a lucky pick.
I don't think anything in that comment was false. That was a lot of truth right there. Kyle, prove him wrong. Prove him wrong.
Like, the Patriots don't get a ton of love for drafting Tom Brady, and the Niners shouldn't get a ton of love for drafting Brock. They got lucky. Come on. Like, it's okay to say that. Like, that doesn't wipe out everything, but it's okay to admit that they got a little bit.
The only reason he even played last year is because Jimmy got hurt. There is a universe where he never plays, and we still don't know what he is. The Niners don't know.
Manny says, we need a quarterback who can beat the AFC quarterbacks. Brock can't. That is the big question, is you're not just trying to get a Super Bowl window. You want a championship window. Just getting to the Super Bowl is not enough, and you're going to have to beat potentially a Hall of Famer when you get there.
Well, that's why Brandon Allen's on the team. He comes from the AFC, okay? Right. He mentored Joe Burrow. Like, A lot of people think he's better than Joe Burrow. And when I say a lot of people, I mean no one in the world. So
yeah. Nick Ellert says, can someone tell me how Carlo knows Kyle has an ego when he's never talked to him? Okay.
Oh, Kyle. Hey, good night. Thank you for calling in. Great to see you, Nick. I don't know, man. He's been in the NFL for like 15 years. I mean, I feel like he's a public person.
How do we know Kyle has an ego? When they asked him about the quarterback injuries, did you see his response? Remember? Oh, I'm sorry that Josh Johnson got hurt, got a concussion. Like, he's got an ego.
Dude, if you ask Kyle straight up, do you have an ego? What do you think he would say?
Right.
He would say, yeah.
I think most coaches do.
I would think so too. He doesn't have to. He doesn't. It's not that the ego's fine. You want to have an ego. Bill Walsh had an ego. You want to have a healthy ego. It's just that I think his goes wild sometimes. I mean, his knows no bounds. At times.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like he almost has too much confidence in himself.
Yes. Like you need to ground yourself a little bit in reality, even though you are really good, and it's great that you believe in yourself. And it's gotten you this far in life. It's great, but you haven't gotten the ring yet. And if you would he's just not introspective, I feel like. If he were a little introspective, if he would look in the mirror, look inward, and just learn one lesson, he wouldn't lose the same way every year. You know what I mean? But
well, there was an interesting little nugget. I don't remember if Lynch said it or Shanahan said it, but somebody said essentially that while they're doing all their draft prep, they're also scouting their own players and sort of evaluating them to figure out, like, where can we improve? Where can we not improve? Are the coaches doing that same thing? That's what I want to know.
Backup tight end. All we need is a new kicker and a new backup tight end. Tyler Kroft is the only reason we lost the NFC Championship game. We get Cameron Latu in here. We're good. I love Kyle Shanahan. You can really see his thought process. It's like, first of all, we need to trade up so that we don't take kicker with our first pick because that'll be scandalous. So we'll take a safety. We'll take it for next year. But kicker is essentially going to be our first pick. And then after that, our second pick is going to be a blocking tight end because everything else is for the future. Gotta love Kyle. Gotta love Kyle. Nothing else they really need to change about the team other than Tyler Kroft.
Sometimes I do wonder about that. Like, they lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, and I think Kyle thought if Nick Mullins was in there, we would have won that game. And
Nick Bosa got held. They should have won that game. They partied after the game with Lil Wayne. They won that game in his eyes. It was fluky. It was the refs.
Sometimes I do wonder if it's always like, well, if it wasn't for this, we would have won. It's like, yeah, everybody can say that though. The real thing, like, what about your performance could have been better? And sometimes, like, I feel like Kyle never thinks like that. Like, if you go back and listen to the way he talks about the Super Bowl with the Falcons, he doesn't even admit to one iota of, like, maybe I could have done this differently.
No, what he says is like, by no means was I perfect, but I'm the best in the world and the best of all time. Essentially is what he's saying. You know what I mean? Like, sure, of course, I'm not perfect. And this, you could nitpick me to death and hindsight me, but who's better than your boy?
Look at these Yeezys. Corey Soto says they got lucky with Purdy in 8 games. We're far from knowing if they got lucky with a franchise quarterback. They don't put quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame after 8. Neither should we. Yes, that is correct.
Well, Kyle said it himself. Like, backup quarterbacks are guys who can look good for a stretch, but either they come back down to earth or they get hurt. And like the team the Niners have set up, a lot of backup quarterbacks could look like starters on this team. It's the best roster in the league, minus the right side of the offensive line, which could get you hurt. But that's for those 2 months, you should be putting up either 300 yards a game or like 3 touchdowns a game. And the only way you get benched is if you turn the ball over. Otherwise, you win and you put up good numbers. So, I mean, assuming it's like, past the bye week and they're rolling. Early in the season, it could be a little rough. But that's because, let's go back and look. In 2021, Raheem Mostert gets hurt on the second carry of the year, and it takes him until week 10 to sort of figure out the running game. And it was with Debo. Last year, Mitchell goes down right away, and it sort of takes them until they trade for Christian McCaffrey to figure out the run game, and then they get rolling. This year, they have a ton of running backs. Yeah. Assuming Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell don't fall apart week 1, this isn't a team that should start 3-5. This is a team that should start freaking 5-0. Last year, they should have started 5-0. So, they started 8-0 in 2019. They have the capability to do that.
Yes. They absolutely do. And they've talked about how they need to get off to a faster start. So it's not even like, they've acknowledged this. There was one line, I think it was Troy Aikman. It was in the first Rams game. It was right before Debo had that amazing, 50-yard catch and run for a touchdown. Troy Aikman said that Kyle Shanahan told them he doubts he has the running backs in the room to play the kind of running game that they wanted to play. And then sure enough, what happens? They trade for Christian McCaffrey a few weeks later. So, but I think your point is a good one. And hopefully, like you said, with the stable of people they have now, they can avoid that.
Let's just count it real quick. So you got Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Deebo Samuel. You still have Ty Davis Price. I guess we're not writing him off yet. Let's see what he has in year 2. But they also brought in this Kalen LeBourne guy. If you don't know who he is, he's an undrafted free agent who was like the number 1 running back recruit coming out of high school. He had some injury issues. There was a pandemic. He's 25 years old. But last year, he freaking killed it at Marshall. He ran a 4.4. He looks a lot like... He's like Elijah Mitchell with an NFL body. Elijah Mitchell's really good, but he doesn't have really that much muscle mass, and he gets hurt a lot. This guy has a real NFL body. Just wait for. He seems like the guy, like the undrafted free agent, not du jour, but of the year for the Niners. So that's like 6 deep. 6 deep.
They're gonna need it. I'm obsessed with this Jack Coletto from Oregon State, the guy that plays like 85 positions. Like, what the hell is this guy gonna do?
I love Kyle Shanahan. Like, he always wants people who aren't running backs who can play running back, and who aren't quarterbacks who can throw, because those little things make him look so smart, right? And I think that's kind of why he doesn't really splurge. Well, he doesn't really think much about the right side of the offensive line, like the right guard and the right tackle. There's not much he can do with him. You can't throw, you can't run the ball, you can't make me look smart. So just don't make me look dumb and play well enough. And if you get thrown in the air like Mike McGlinchey, you're just making yourself look bad. Sorry. Like, I look smart that I can win with you. Actually, that's what it is. Yeah.
You can't tell me there's not a little part of Kyle Shanahan that's like, hey, Jack Coletto played a lot of quarterback. Let's keep him on the practice squad. And God help us if we ever need him in a playoff game. Let's just put him on the active roster just in case the crap hits the fan again. And it won't be Christian McCaffrey trying to put the quarterback helmet on and read the plays off the wristband.
Dude, if Kyle Shanahan ever gets in a game where he goes through all of his quarterbacks, he'd be like the only head coach ever that did that more than once. You'd have to say, dude, it's your fault at this point. So I don't think he should be preparing for that.
Chris, watching on YouTube, says, you can tell who the idiots are when they say Brock got lucky for 8 games. There's no such thing. A couple of games, maybe like Cooper Rush, but 8 games in a row shows you have skill and potential.
Okay.
Hey. No, it doesn't.
Didn't they say that about Jimmy at one point, though? I mean,
right.
He won 7 in a row. He won his first 2 with the Patriots. He won 5 with the Niners. What's 7 in a row? What's the difference? In the 8th? Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. I think we should probably slow our roll. Like, trust our eyes. He's on the best team in the league. He's physically limited. He doesn't throw the ball downfield that much. He got hurt twice. Like, I think there's more to see.
Exactly. And you're not like crapping on Brock Purdy if you just say, hey, I want to see more before I decide. Like, that's not slanderous. Like, what are we doing?
Like, let's not get rid of Trey Lance. Let's not just shut down the whole quarterback competition. Let's not give Brock Purdy an extension. I know he's not due for one yet, but like, let's not pretend he's proven something he hasn't. You got to keep. I mean, Jimmy had to go because he'd proven he's not the guy. But Trey, Brock, and Sam. I mean, there's enough mystery for them to all be here and for them to all, compete against each other.
Sean, watching on YouTube, says, Grant, Kyle could have 10 running backs and still only use 1.
So
it's
true.
A good point. He really does.
But I think a big thing for Kyle this year is don't wear down Christian McCaffrey in the regular season, because you do that to all of your running backs. Like your dad did to Terrell Davis. Like, please stop doing this to running backs.
Yeah, I don't know why he doesn't use more than 1 in a game, really, unless he has to, because that guy gets injured. He just does not rotate them, and it's really, really weird.
It's strange because he's such a genius. You know what I mean? You think like people use rotations. It's not that wild. And he has the running backs to do it. Like, if he actually used a rotation, could you imagine? Right. I mean, because really McCaffrey isn't built for more than 12 to 15. He doesn't need to carry the ball more than 15 times. Look at him. You're also going to throw the ball to him 5 to 8 times.
That's the
so thing. Just cap him at 15. Give 10 to Mitchell. 5 to. I mean, that's so obvious. Let's see if he does it.
Josh, watching on YouTube, says the Raiders added Mayer at 34, the best tight end in the draft, to go with Adams and Jacobs. If Jimmy Garoppolo makes the Pro Bowl, does the Kyle genius narrative fall apart? No, I think the worst, I don't think it's bad because he still has Josh McDaniels there. So you could say, hey, he went from Kyle Shanahan to Josh McDaniels.
That's true.
What will make Kyle look bad is if Jimmy stays healthy for enough games to make the Pro Bowl. Because then you're like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. Oh, you have injury issues. Like, if it happens again this year and Brock gets hurt or Sam, Darnold gets hurt or Trey gets hurt again, and then Jimmy magically doesn't, then you have to say, like, dude, yeah, it's the scheme or it's something. I don't know what it is, but I don't buy your excuses anymore. So it's a very interesting year. And the fact that Kyle Shanahan doubled down and didn't draft an offensive lineman makes it like even spicier. Like, let's see what happens.
That was really to not
Yeah.
pick one and then to be asked about it after the draft. And he's basically like, we didn't like any of them whenever we were on the clock, which is fine, but like, okay.
Trade. You traded up. You traded up for a safety, right? So
That's true.
you work the board. You don't let the board work you. I have a proposal for a social experiment next year. Let's pick a position, a round, a player, and just use reverse psychology on Kyle Shanahan. Whatever we don't want him to do, tell him to do it. And we'll all do it together. It'll be like an inside joke, and I bet it works. I bet it freaking works. Reverse psychology.
If we could ever organize like that would be a fascinating.
How old is your son?
My son is 8.
Does reverse psychology work on your son? Or is he too sophisticated?
No, sometimes it does. Sometimes.
There you go.
We'll see. Mansa watching on YouTube was Sam Darnold in Cabo. I don't think they've taken the Cabo trip yet, but I will be, if he goes to Cabo, like, oh man, you better believe I'll be talking about that.
He seems like the kind of guy who's just in Cabo by himself. Like he just has a second house in Cabo. How could he not be in Cabo? Cabo's his middle name. Look at him. He's from San Clemente. He has a Cabo vibe, a Cabo state of mind.
So there are league meetings coming up later this month. Actually, the 22nd. It's the same day that OTAs start. You're not obviously going to be at the league meetings. Jed will be there. I would love for the next time you get the chance to talk to Jed, just ask him, like, Jed, do you really think paying for certain players to go to Cabo is a good look? Because I hate that. I think it's so
Jed,
bad.
could you explain the Cabo thing? It just, because I don't understand it. It seems like a really strange, clicky look. Like, what is that? Why would you
just
only
pay for
invite
everybody?
The best? Pay for the best, dude. I mean, you're rich, right? It'll make you look great. This doesn't make you look good.
I think it's a bad look. And I would understand if other players in that locker room did not like it. And were like, why didn't I get invited? Are you giving extra weight to things that those guys say? Like, it's just not good. It is not good.
To be fair, Eddie did the same thing in the early 80s. He would take Joe, from what I heard, I mean, I wasn't alive. My dad, take Joe, Dwight, Ronnie to Vegas and sort of bankroll them at the tables. But Bill Walsh wasn't there. Like, I think for Kyle to be there, like he's one of the guys, it's strange. Again, I'm going to use the parent-kid metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Kyle's supposed to be the parent, but he's like the parent whose kids call him by his first name. And to me, like, dad. I don't like that. To me, it's like, okay, you don't demand respect from your kids. Like, you're gonna let them talk to you like that. It's uncomfortable. But they're not his kids, and obviously. But he's the cool dad, right? And I feel like those guys kind of take advantage. Like, hey, if I go to Cabo, I might get that contract. Like, I'm going to Cabo. I'm laughing at those jokes, man. I'm playing catch with Kyle.
It's just a weird. I've never heard of that with any other coach and their players. Like, I cannot think of, and I don't know, maybe McVay's doing it. I know McVay also goes down there. I don't know. Maybe there are other coaches doing that. I want to put that out there, but it is a weird.
All I know
weird look.
is that Darnold is friends with McCaffrey. Now Darnold's on the team. Cam Latu went to tight end U or whatever with George Kittle. Now Cam Latu's on the team, man. It seems like if you got like an inroad with the Cabo clique, like you just might get a contract with the 49ers. It's such a family. I love how they take care of each other. It's great.
187 says Trey is not invited to Cabo. He hasn't been so far. That's one thing we know for sure. You know, if he got invited and he went, though, there'd be people like, why isn't he working on his throwing motion?
True. Maybe Trey's more of a Cancun guy. Maybe he prefers Miami.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe it's too dry in Cabo. It's very dry in Baja California.
Speaking of Trey Lance, there was one thing I wanted to get to, and that is I'm fascinated by the Colts and Anthony Richardson because I feel like they essentially drafted Trey Lance. Correct. I was looking at it this morning. Let me throw this up here. If you can see it, if you're watching on YouTube, their college stats are crazy similar. Correct. Trey had 17 starts. Richardson had 13. Trey had 318 pass attempts. Richardson had 347. Trey had
That's a better. That's the key right there. But we can keep going. But that's key. I mean, fewer than 350 pass attempts, and you went top 5. Like, those are the only two guys. But keep going.
Right. Trey's completion percentage, 65. Richardson, 54. They've had basically the same amount of passing yards. Trey had a little more. 30 touchdowns passing for Trey, just 17 for Richardson. And Richardson had 11 picks. Of course, Trey only had the one.
Of course, Trey played FCS. Richardson played SEC. Of course.
Right. Yes. That was the big. I was going to mention that at the end. The level of competition for Richardson, way better.
Couldn't be
way
any
better.
Different. Yeah, any more different. Yeah.
They're pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
And yet everything you hear out of the Colts is, we're going to play this guy. Mm-hmm. We're going to let him learn and grow. It's okay if we struggle a little bit. And I just am
We're going to be patient. Yeah.
Right. And because I feel like in 2 years after the Colts draft Anthony Richardson, he's going to be in such a better place than Trey Lance is after 2 years with the 49ers. It's not even going to be close. And I feel like the Colts are going to do everything that the Niners should have done with Trey Lance.
Absolutely. And I think it's so funny. Like the questions for the Colts, you don't bring up Trey Lance explicitly, but it's all implied. Like, why would you do this given what a miserable failure, not Trey Lance has been, but how this hasn't worked out for the Niners? If the Niners couldn't figure this out, and they're a great organization, why would you think you could figure this out? And they're like, oh, because we're actually going to play the guy. Whatever the Niners' plan was, like, hey, all credit to them for building that team, but that was stupid. We're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to play him and be patient, which is the two things the Niners weren't. They didn't play him. They judged him on his first impression, and I guess it wasn't what they wanted. And now they're pushing him out the door for his third string, not even his backup, his third stringer. So, yeah, that's where it's like, yeah, okay, our guy's more athletic than Trey, and we are going to take the exact opposite approach. And I think that's pretty funny.
And who's their head coach? Shane Steichen. And guess what offense he just led? The offense the Niners wish they could be in the Philadelphia Eagles.
If you remember a couple months ago when I was saying that I would be okay with trading Kyle Shanahan, and people were like, okay, well, who would you get to replace him? I said Shane Steichen. Not that I know he's going to be a great head coach, but I just like the offense he runs. And now like his plan for Anthony Richardson warms my little heart. Like I was like, oh my God, he could have been Trey Lance's coach. He's from Sacramento. He's from out here. I mean, hey, I understand not getting rid of Kyle Shanahan. He's good for the brand and all that. It had success, but just you might want to monitor what's going on in Indianapolis because that could be happening here. The guy coached Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, and now he's coaching Anthony Richardson.
He knows how to coach up a dual threat quarterback. We've seen a great.
But so does Kyle. He's great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Official B&A Music says Jed will take the undrafted free agents to Bakersfield. Well done. Shout out to Valerie.
He doesn't know where Bakersfield is. It's all right. It's all right. You don't want to know. No, I take it back. People live in Bakersfield. I take it back. I've never been to Bakersfield.
New member on the channel, Valerie. Thank you very much. She says, I enjoy the takes from both of you. Everything is not always rosy in Santa Clara.
No, it is. If you go there, it's rare so many roses.
It's rare that we both get compliments.
I know. It's usually just you.
Well, no, unless they want to insult me and then they say I'm the baby Cohn. How do you feel about that?
Nice. That's not nice. That's not nice.
So,
also, yeah, it's actually kind of nice.
I'm going to be fascinated by what the Niners do with Trey Lance this year and what the Colts do with Anthony Richardson, because I think that they're going to have the right approach. And I know everyone's going to say, well, Super Bowl window. The truth is, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a championship window. You have a maybe we can get to the Super Bowl window, but you don't have a win the Super Bowl window. And that's the whole point of this damn thing.
Also, if you take a quarterback like Richardson or Lance, and your plan is to sit him and get him ready on the bench because your team is too good, like you should never take that guy. Like that's what that plan doesn't work. So the Niners never should have taken Trey Lance. If you didn't, because the book on him, it even says it on his NFL.com profile, like a personnel executive for an AFC team said, he needs an offense tailored to what he does best, and you have to be really patient with him. The Niners didn't have the patience. You had to be patient. They were like, no. He's going to be ready right away. No, absolutely not. 317 throws. No. And the Colts aren't saying that Richardson's going to be ready right away. They're saying, it's okay. It's okay. We're committed to this. We're going to trust the process. We're going to be patient. It's like, okay, well, he does have a chance then. He really does.
I can't wait to see Borno. I just want to see him because he's an athletic freak. Like, oh my yeah, like insane. Like you said, he's a better athlete than Trey Lance. That's not a knock on Lance. Richardson's just incredible.
It's an underselling of Richardson too. Like he's the best athlete I think there's probably ever been at the quarterback position. It doesn't mean he's going to be a good quarterback, but he has more to work with than I think anyone ever at the position.
That's a crazy thing to think about, but
Yep.
we'll see if it all works out.
Yep.
That was everything on my list, Grant. I feel like we finished up early this week. What's going on?
I don't
Are
know.
we
There
off
aren't
our
that many
game?
super chats today. I think people may be having a little draft fatigue. They've, sort of digested all of the new players, and now they're sort of looking forward. And we got rookie mini camp next week, and then OTAs in a couple weeks. And I think people want to see a training camp, an OTA report. What happened with Lance throwing, Darnold throwing? What did it look
Yep.
like? I think people are ready for that. And
Well,
we're
for the
about 2-3 weeks away.
The rookie minicamp, every kick that Moody makes is going to be like, he's got to make every one. I was joking the other day. I said the only
Yeah.
two people that have to be perfect in their jobs are barbers and surgeons. Well, guess what? Jake Moody's going to have to be
Drafted
perfect
in round 3.
If he
Yeah.
misses a kick, especially like his first kick in rookie minicamp, like people are going to lose their minds.
If he misses like a few kicks into practice, it'll be national news. That's the thing. Like, the reason I think Roberto Aguayo kind of crumbled, I don't know much about him, but when you get taken that high, like, everyone laughs. And then the whole football world is waiting for you to mess up so they can laugh and say, see, it was dumb. It was dumb. Like, no one wants to change. Everyone's already made up their mind that Jake Moody pick was super dumb. Like, every fan from every other team and a lot of Niner fans and a lot of pundits. So he misses one, like, no, everyone's going to notice. No one's going to miss it. Everyone's going to talk about it. You're on basically Cowboys West. You're on a very high-profile team with a lot of drama and media scrutiny. Like, you are going to get nitpicked to death. So you better be Robbie Gould out of the gate or better.
And then it's like, okay, well, can he take a deep breath and just say, hey, you know what? Like, I'll adjust. I'll get to it. No, because Zane Gonzalez is also there. It's just like the quarterbacks. Like Trey never had the deck cleared for him because Jimmy was always there. It's the same damn thing, man.
It's a good point, man. Hey, if you mess up, you miss a couple kicks, we don't really have the time because we're a win now team. So you better be. Hey, Robbie Gould's your mentor. He's been talking you up. Hey, you better show some results right away. No pressure though, buddy.
It's a weird. I don't like how they do that sometimes. Like, damn, man, just let somebody live for a little bit.
Also, I think it might be a little bit of a comment on how they build their team. They build their team backwards. They don't get the quarterback first. They don't get the offensive line first. They build everything else, and then they want to insert the quarterback last. And they think that's the right way to do it. But it just is so hard because he has to be ready right away. He can't improve. You have to win right away. And, Joe Montana didn't, Steve Young didn't. A lot of times these great quarterbacks take a little bit of time, and the Niners don't have that time. So they keep kind of settling for backups who look good right away, but get hurt, can't sustain it. And, it's interesting.
Steve Young just had a tweet 13 hours ago. It says 3-16 record as a starter, 11 touchdowns, 21 interceptions, sacked a franchise record 47 times in 1986. Push through adversity. You never know what's on the other side. And it's a video of him in Tampa Bay playing with the Buccaneers, which is still one of the weirdest looking things to ever see. But like Steve Young literally just put that video out and was like, hey, have some patience. And we'll see. Trenton says, any chance Trey can win the starting job? If the Niners have patience with him, I think they can, but I don't know if they will.
I would think that he absolutely can win the starting job. Sam Darnold isn't good. Brandon Allen isn't good. We don't know about Trey. It's possible that Trey isn't good, but we don't know that. It's been 4 starts. I actually think he can be good. So I think he's going to win this competition. We'll see. And also, I think he's going to win this competition straight up.
That's your official prediction.
Yeah, I think he will. Now, if they go on whatever quarterback has the higher completion percentage in camp, it might be Darnold. But I also feel like Darnold going against the first string defense, unless he's checking down to Christian McCaffrey every time, he's going to throw a lot of picks. I just have a feeling.
Could be that too. Full White says, just thankful we took something else other than a running back in the 3rd round. I know Jason Ponte was not happy with that analysis. But some people think that way. I mean, just because they've had bad 3rd round picks in the past doesn't mean they're always going to have bad 3rd round picks.
Jason wanted a running back?
No, he wanted anything except kicker.
Fair.
Yeah.
But I feel like the take on that one is like anyone you wanted at 99 would have been available at 101. And it's like, why did you take a blocking tight end? Like, you missed the run on tight ends. There was a run. You missed it. The Packers got freaking 2. I bet you didn't see that coming. But if you wanted to get a tight end, you needed to trade up for him like you traded up for the safety. You made your choice. You traded up for the safety. So don't reach. Don't freaking reach, but you reached.
Need is a
And
terrible
now you put
evaluator.
unreasonable expectations on Cam Latu. And if he doesn't, and that's the Niners do this all the time, like Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas. You put these expectations, you take these guys too high, and then when they don't live up to it, it's their fault. Like the fans get mad at them. It's like, no, you put them in this position. Cam Latu has to be really good.
Kinlaw especially.
Yes.
You traded DeForest Buckner. You drafted the same position with the pick that you got from that deal, and you gave him the same number.
And so fans get mad at Kinlaw. It's like, no, well, he was put in an impossible situation. Same with Solomon Thomas. You drafted him ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Forget about it. It's over. Third pick in the draft. He never should have been that.
Never should have been.
So I feel bad for players like that sometimes because the GMs never take the heat for that.
But when you're looking and you see all these draft grades for the 49ers, and it's like C, B minus, F, whatever, go back and look at the draft grades for that 2017 class. What were they saying? A plus. Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. Great job by the 49ers. Peter King, I think, was in the draft room that year. He wrote up like a whole thing. So, like, don't stress about the draft grades this year.
Sure.
Timothy Glander says, how long until a true rebuild?
They won't. I think the way they're sort of set up is to never do that.
Yeah.
They're not going to, they love being in the mix. They have a formula to stay in the mix. Do they have a formula to get over the hump? We'll see.
That's a good point. I do think that they'll never have to totally tear it down. I think Kyle is too good on offense to where like they're never going to be just putrid, pathetic, like have to rip it out to the studs. But the question
also, they're never going to mortgage their future the way the Rams did. They're never going to do that.
They came kind of close.
Yeah, but they have this. I mean, they have this formula to get these comp picks. I think they're always sort of looking at the future and the present at the same time. You've never seen them just be like, you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, they've given up a lot of first round picks, but they're so bad at drafting in rounds 1, 2, and 3 anyway. So like, who cares?
That's the thing, though. If you can make those good picks in the later rounds,
which they can,
it doesn't matter if you don't have those picks. Warren Sharp actually had a good tweet yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And it was all about the 5th-year option and how teams have been with either re-signing those first-round draft picks or picking up their 5th-year option. The 49ers had picked up 7 of 13 5th-year options, which started in 2011, which was 53%, something like that. That's okay, but then when you see they traded those first-round picks, like to me, that makes me feel a little better about the picks they gave up because it's like most of the time, or at least half the time, they weren't re-signing those guys anyway, so how good were they?
True. And that 5th-year option can be very expensive. So maybe, I mean, for some positions, maybe you want that, like quarterback. But maybe you don't at right tackle. You know, maybe you don't at other ones. So maybe it's better to just get out of the first round, get some proven players, and draft on days 2 and 3, unless you really get in a position that you want to invest in.
You wanted to hear a crazy statistic that I noticed out of that?
Yes.
How many 5th-year options do you think the Seattle Seahawks have picked up?
Very little.
0.
Wow.
They have not picked up a 5th-year option on a single first-round draft pick since it started in 2011. And by the way, all those drafts have been John Schneider. So before we go chirping about how great the Seahawks draft was.
Is it because they don't like giving out 5th-year options, or is it because they're bad at drafting in round 1? Probably that one.
I think it's bad. They're bad at drafting in round 1.
Right. Yeah.
They haven't not won since 2011. Holy hell. So that's why I'm very skeptical of draft grades, and maybe I'm just sensitive because the Niners are getting dinged by a lot of people. I fully admit that could be it. That's fair. That jumped out at me.
That's fair. I mean, like we're saying Cam Latu was a reach. Like maybe he's a stud. Maybe he's not a reach. Like we don't really know. We're all going based on like media consensus, essentially.
Yep.
So we'll see. Media doesn't know.
Corey Soto, people talk about the great Purdy story, but what about the Lance story if he takes the starting job back and keeps it? Talk about fighting the tide. I have thought this for a long time, that if Trey does play and plays well, let's say he wins the job and just keeps it, right? Because he's tearing the hell out of everybody. Stories are going to come out, and it's going to be, you don't understand how close Trey Lance was to getting traded in the offseason. They were talking about trades in the comment. When people feel safe, that's when they reveal stuff like that. So if he comes out and kills it, I guarantee you'll see a story about 1, how many teams are after him, and 2, how close he was to getting dealt.
But it is a great story if he perseveres off of it. It's a lot like Jalen Hurts, right? You got
Yep.
benched at halftime for Tua. You had to transfer. You had to believe in yourself. And that's where Trey's at. Like, Trey, you got to believe in yourself here because it's starting to look like not that many people believe in you. But that doesn't matter. As long as you believe in yourself, you write your story here. Like, look at Jalen Hurts. That's what he did. And it did help that the whole Eagles organization had his back. It's always nice when your teammates have your back. And Trey doesn't really have that right now. But hey, Trey, we got your back. Me and Rob.
But
The
what
two
did
of
Philly
us.
do? Philly said, we're playing you, and we're going to load up the roster around you, so there will be no excuse now.
And we're getting rid of Carson Wentz, so you don't have to look over your shoulder.
Right. They cleared the deck, and they were like, come hell or high water, we're riding with you because we have to know whether or not we need a quarterback this year.
We have to know now.
Out.
Yeah.
So I give him credit
And what
for
I think
that.
is interesting is like what's great about the Eagles, so they gave Carson Wentz that really, really big contract extension.
Yep.
What did they do like a month later? Draft Jalen Hurts in round 2. And people were like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? Because it's the quarterback spot. Even though we gave him that huge contract, man, things happen. And they did. And so what did they do? They gave Jalen Hurts that big extension this year. What did they do? They drafted Tanner McKee this year. Like, they're always looking at quarterbacks. They're always bringing in quarterbacks. Why? Because that's what good organizations fucking do. And the Niners are over here being like, it's cool. We got Brock. We got Brock and Sam Darnold. We're good.
Sam Darnold. We're good. What are you talking about? They doubled up. That's their protection. Mansa says, I know it's early, but has the defense improved? It's a fair question. They have some losses. They lost Charles Omenihu. They lost Azeez Al-Shire. They lost Emmanuel Mosley. They did add Javon Hargrave. What do you think, Grant? Right now, better or worse than last year?
It was the number 1 defense in the league last year. But I could see better. I mean, Hargrave over Kinlaw is just a huge addition. I mean, just huge. Let's say Armstead plays a full season. They didn't have that last year. Now, you lost Samson Ebukam, but like, what if Drake Jackson takes a big step forward? What if D. Winters is really good? What if Isaiah Oliver's a better cover corner than Jimmy Ward? What if Steve Wilkes is a better coordinator than DeMeco Ryans, who has his strengths, but Wilkes is a lot more experienced. So there are reasons to think that this defense could be even better. Yeah.
And before you say, the Steve Wilkes is not going to be better than DeMeco, who would have thought that first-time coordinator DeMeco Ryans was going to be better than Robert Saleh? And he was, I think.
Here, let me say, what does DeMeco do well? What is the calling card of a DeMeco defense? He keeps it simple. He got his guys playing at maximum effort. When they tackle, there's 11 guys at the ball. Like, that's a DeMeco defense. And that's great. Keep it simple. Not a lot of busted coverages, but like, what are his pressure packages? What's a DeMeco blitz? Like, this the Talanoa Hufanga one off the edge, or maybe Fred Warner up the middle. Like, there's not a lot going on with his pressure package. He basically allows his guys to be great. That 4-man pass rush, when it's clicking, he looks great. But to me, Saleh actually had some very intricate pressure packages, and he had a top 5 defense without Bosa. And I feel like Wilkes is known for his pressures. So I'm curious to see if he can add a little bit to a defense that's great, but also very vanilla.
That's fair, I guess.
Yeah.
I think your point about Armstead is a good one too. They got 0 regular season sacks out of Eric Armstead last year. 0.
Yeah.
Now,
but he killed it in the
up.
Yeah, exactly. So
yes,
he can do it. He can do it if he's healthy.
But I'm saying, like, I would assume he's going to be better just from that, just because he's a better player than that. So if he's healthy, he'll be better. That's an improvement there. Javon Hargrave, like you said, that's an improvement. I think you kind of poo-pooed it earlier. I think Jair Brown could start. I think it could be Brown and Hufanga out of the gate. I wouldn't be stunned if that happened.
I just felt like, man, Tashawn Gibson was so good last year. Like, that's the last guy you need to necessarily bench. But hey, if Jair Brown takes his job, respect, because that's a really good pro that you just beat out. But like, it's not going to be easy. I was thinking, man, you trade up for a guy like I bet you could find someone who could take Colt McKivit's job. But Tashawn Gibson, he was arguably better than Huff last year. Statistically, he was.
Yeah,
he gave up like 1 touchdown.
Came right to him though.
True. What I would say is Huff sometimes does too much, and it can lead to big plays. It can also lead to touchdowns. I think he gave up like 4 or 5 touchdowns. Gip just kind of plays his position. He's in the right spot, and when the ball comes to him, he doesn't miss. Unlike,
he doesn't miss.
Tart.
Yeah,
he doesn't miss. Yeah.
Manny says we won't get a bowl until Kyle and Lynch are gone. I wouldn't say that. I'm not
also
willing to go.
Let me stick with Tashawn Gibson real quick, because that's someone no one ever talks about. He's been in the league since 2012. He has 32 picks in his career. Like he's been doing this, and he's the kind of guy that's like, yeah, man, you can push him off your team. You can call him a practice squad guy, but if he's on the practice field, he's gonna be a real tough guy to beat out. He's a competitor. He's really good.
Well, and that's what I think the Niners have done with their safeties is
Yeah.
they have prioritized guys that are around the ball and make plays on the ball. Jair Brown had 10 picks over his last 2 years in college. He's the only player in the country that can say that. And it's the same thing with Hufanga. Like, yeah, you're right. Sometimes he does too much and gets into trouble, but he also makes game-changing plays. And I think that they are going from two safeties in Ward and Tart that didn't give up big plays, but didn't make game-changing plays. And they are switching it now to, we need dudes that can change the game. And I think Brown and Hufanga are similar kind of instinctive players in that way.
Yeah, it's about time. Nothing against Jimmy Ward and Tart. Those guys are great players. And they have their definite, like, two really sound players, great athletes, guys who can cover man-to-man tackle. Like, that's great skill sets. But now the Niners have gone for like a total 180. Like, we don't really care about 4.4 speed at safety. Right. We just want guys who are legit playmakers and have ball skills. And, that wasn't Ward and Tart. Like, that's Huff and Gibson. And that's what Brown is too. So now you got three guys like that. Beautiful. And I'm sure like there are, a lot of packages where you could have Brown at nickel. Yes. You know what I mean? Or you could do, or whatever. You could have him at linebacker, whatever. And that would be pretty intriguing too.
Yeah, you could use Brown almost kind of similar to the way they used Hufanga in his rookie year, where he would just kind of like appear and you didn't know if he was like
on third down and like a dime package or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's sneak one more in here. Carlo says, I don't know how to say this guy's name. How do you say this running back's name? Kalen. I believe it's Kalen.
Kalen LeBourne.
LeBourne. Okay.
Yeah.
Will Kalen LeBourne make the team and will Ambry get cut? I think Ambry's in trouble.
I think Ambry's in major trouble.
I thought he was in trouble last year.
When a new D coordinator comes in, he's got no allegiances. He's looking at everyone. He has his own opinion on every single player that he may have different feelings than D'Amico did. So they drafted Darrell Luter Jr. They signed Isaiah Oliver. Like, it's not looking good for you, Ambry. So, hey, he'll have all of the offseason to show something. But if he hasn't shown that he's like put together an NFL body and that he's tough and that you're out. You're out. So,
they're not going to wait on you.
Will he make the team? I mean, he has a good of a shot. I mean, Jordan Mason did it last year. So he could. He absolutely could. Is it running back 4? We'll see what happens. And if he doesn't, he'll be on the practice squad. He'll make it eventually. Is the way I look at it.
I think they've shown, like, if you're a running back and you show out, like, they're keeping you. They'll keep you.
There's no development there. There's no development there. Like Trey Sermon, you weren't exactly what we thought you were. You're gone. Ty Davis Price, you got to start right now.
He could be cut right now.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, let's sneak in this last one here. Jeffrey says, Trey is used to the pressure by now. He will ball out and show why we drafted him so early. Is he used to the pressure, though? I mean,
I don't know what he's used to, man.
Right. He went to a program in North Dakota State. They just rolled everybody.
Yep. That's a good point. It's a really good point. Now he's got to go against Sam Darnold, who's just lost and lost and lost, except for the last 6 games. Did you know that in the last 6 games, Sam Darnold won 4 of them? He had a complete career renaissance. You should look that up because no one really talks about it.
Yeah, no. And one of those games, he threw for like 34 yards, but no touchdowns and 2 picks, but they won. So we should include it in that 6 game. We should definitely mention it when we talk about how well he's
right.
Played.
When Sam Darnold goes 5 for 15 for 34 yards and 2 picks and 3 fumbles, like that's being a gritty gamer. If Trey Lance were to do that.
Right. If Trey Lance had half as many interceptions and fumbles as Sam Darnold had, he'd be off the team by now. But
why do you think the Panthers ran for so many yards down the stretch? It's because Sam Darnold motivated them to. He got in the huddle and he was like, "Okay, we're running the ball. I want you to break tackles and gain a lot of yards." And they were like, "Oh, got it." And then they did. And they were like, "Sam, thank you for the advice and the motivation."
And plus, they were like, "If we lose, who cares? We'll get a better draft pick anyway." So it was like, God, I don't know. I want to just get to something on the field where the cream can hopefully rise to the top, and then we can put all this foolishness behind us.
I just think it's funny that the Niners went to Carolina last year and they were kind of struggling, and Kyle was on the sideline. He was like, "Man, if I just had like 5 players and 1 coach from that team, we'd be set." And then he did it. Like the Panthers missing pieces was what the Niners needed, and they got him.
That's the gold mine that they had to mine, for lack of a
Carolina.
better word. Who knew?
Who knew?
Well,
Kyle can see it though because he's a genius.
A genius.
A genius.
By the way, Trey Lance's 23rd birthday coming up next week on Tuesday. It'd be interesting. Let's see if the Niners even acknowledge it. I'll be fascinated by that. They might not.
Really a great question. I don't know that they will.
They didn't want to acknowledge him before the draft until people started pointing it out on Twitter. So who knows? But like you said, OTA is coming up later this month as well. So we'll have some interesting little things to digest. And the schedule comes out May 11th, which I cannot wait for. I am fascinated to break that down.
15-2. I haven't even seen the schedule yet. 15-2, 16-1. I can't decide yet. Haven't made up my mind.
Not sure about that, but we'll see. But there are plenty of things to look forward to here. So please like and subscribe to both YouTube channels, to Grant's YouTube channel, to the Gold Standard Podcast Network YouTube channel as well. If you can follow Grant on Twitter at Grant Cohn, you can follow me at Stats on Fire. Grant, I know you're going to be doing like 8 more shows the rest of the day. What do you have coming up?
11 o'clock with Jose, the All 49ers show, and then late night, real late night, 6 o'clock Pacific, 49ers After Dark, where me and Jesse get just a little spicy.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So make sure you tune in for those. What about me?
Being a
Nothing.
Dad.
Being looking for a job the rest of the week because I've been scuffling here since January, but we'll figure that out. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. Thanks for all the super chat. Shout out to all the new members on the YouTube channel. We appreciate you, and we'll be back next week.